welcome to a special edition of Fact or Fiction. So this time we are graduating from Urban Myths and Legends to discuss fan theories. So I am Adam, and probably my favorite fandom would probably be Star Wars, but I dabble in quite a few of them. And so yeah, I'll just kind of pass it around the table and we'll go from there.
I'm Julie. I work at Talons, and it's like choosing one of your favorite children, your favorite fandom. Harry Potter, Doctor Who, probably my two favorites. Then there's Firefly and Star Trek. Those four.
I'm Philip. Probably my favorite fandom would either be Doctor Who or Marvel Comics, probably.
I'm Justine, and I'm a huge Pokemon nerd, so that's my favorite fandom.
Fantastic. So we're going to delve into a couple of fan theories, and that can be any sort of rumor about a show that turned out to be true, a spot you thought the story was going to go. There's tons of them online about ways things should have ended or connections between franchises, that they're all set in the same universe, etc. So we're just going to kind of pass it around a little bit, and we'll talk about some of our favorite ones. So who'd like to start?
I can go. This is more of a troll than anything. I suspect that the big bad in WandaVision is Mephisto.
I've heard that one.
Sadly, that's one of those fan theories which has been proven horrifically wrong. So, but I felt like there was a lot of evidence in the show to point in that direction.
I was really waiting for spoilers. The witch to not be a real witch, and that just be a part of like her figment of her imagination. I almost felt like that was like a wasted moment. I totally was like, nope, she's not going to be real. She's not going to be real. Oh, she is real. Okay, we're going that direction.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting because modern fandom is almost in real time. So there's a real dialogue between fans and creators versus, like when I was growing up and it was years between sequels, and you might go like, oh, what would it be like if there was another Ghostbusters movie? And maybe they have some fan theories on that. But I really feel now that like creators rely on their audience to kind of feed back into that.
They're much more reactionary.
There's the opposite though. I was just, the new Rainbow Rowell book came out last week. And in part of the Simon universe, the last book in the Simon universe, and Rainbow was talking about how she does not read any fan fiction because she doesn't want it to impact her writing.
Oh, sure.
And so how sometimes like she had to like get off Twitter because people would say things about the characters and she's just like, oh no, I didn't read that, no, that's not right. And so I thought that was really interesting because I've heard that from other authors too, that they're like, I do not read any fan fiction about my work whatsoever.
Interesting. I've definitely heard authors who like sometimes say that they're actively writing, that they will avoid the genre that they're writing so they don't inadvertently add somebody else's ideas or things to their what they're doing. So.
Maybe you can speak to this, Julie, since you're our resident Harry Potter fan. I have heard fan theories that Neville was supposed to be the chosen one and not Harry, but I don't actually know enough to speak on that. But do you have any insights into that?
Well, because it was one or the other, right? So you get to the point where you find out that it could have been Neville or Harry, and that because it was the parents had thrice or twice defied the Dark Lord, and like you're just kind of like right there, and he just decided to go after Lily, and so it makes you and James, and it really makes you kind of wonder how much Sirius's love for Lily like had to play into that, I think. And maybe maybe Voldemort thought that Sirius would take things a little more seriously. I had to, I'm sorry. If he was able to take Lily out of the picture, because Lily was kind of this thing that could flip him to the other side. And so maybe that's why. But I know that was definitely a moment when everyone's read some Harry Potter book, right? And
Spoilers.
Yeah. When Neville picks up the sword of Gryffindor at the end and goes after Nagini, and I was just like, what is happening? This is awesome. And that's a verb now, long bottomed, right? That is a verb now, which has other connotations. But like, I just think that that's kind of cool to be able to see that like complete character development, and it makes you wonder how different things would have been.
Totally.
And if like the shoe had been on the foot, and like what would have happened with Lily and James because of what happened to Neville's parents.
Yeah, that actually kind of really ties back into one of our earlier panels regarding time travel type stuff. Is that the way it was always supposed to happen? What would have happened if the other kid had ended up being a part of this? Some interesting rabbit holes on that.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of fan theory stuff like fills that niche.
Yeah.
You know, I know one of the more recent, I mean not super recent, but I know a big one in pop culture would have been Captain America at the end of Endgame when he goes back in time. Like, what is he doing when he's returning the Infinity Stones? You know, how does he end up with Peggy? How many Hydra agents did he just let go? Things like that.
There's actually a fan theory related to that he's at her funeral.
At her funeral,
He's got his
yeah.
old man form as well as his young man forms. There's an older gentleman helping carry the casket in the film Winter Soldier.
Mhm.
So,
Although confirms a different actor.
yeah, sure. But yeah.
Does it make the fan theory any less fun?
Yep. All right. So I'll throw one out there. One I've heard is that Donkey from Shrek is actually one of the kids that gets transformed into a donkey in Pinocchio.
Pinocchio! Oh, wow.
So, because think about the human level sentience as well as the kind of anthem transformation happening in that film, and so that's one that those are connected.
And they are both equally terrifying.
I hope he aged a lot, considering the direction that Donkey's romance with Dragon went. I'm really hoping that was like a longer period in between.
I love how that's the problem with Donkey's Dragon romance. Just gonna throw that out there.
The fan theories are interesting because I feel like it cuts across pretty much every genre. I feel like every intellectual property or every piece of fiction has got, you know, its audience, and then people who will take the what if step to the next level where, you know, they'll produce like written fan fiction or, you know, discuss fan theories through media or online, things like that. I watch a YouTube channel that's devoted to the Transformers, and even there they delve into fan theories, and I feel in a lot of cases fan theories are designed for us as the audience to provide closure and answers when things don't necessarily make a lot of sense.
The one that always gets me is throwback is everyone always says in the Wizard of Oz there's a dead body hanging in the woods. But there's not. There's no dead body. I don't know where that kind of rumor came from, but I always think that that's a really interesting one because I've read about it and
Yeah, and this is maybe what the something effect.
The Mandela?
Mandela effect, yeah. So like the Polybius game or things. I think there's a theory that there was a film, like a genie film called Kazam or Shazam in the 80s. That's another one that a lot of people believe is real, but never actually took place. So.
there's Kazam with Shaq.
Yeah,
There's a Shaquille O'Neal one.
Yeah.
Yes, and then I know there's another one
Yeah, there's a
that
Shazam.
doesn't exist
Okay.
that people were.
What they thought it was like Sinbad.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. Which is not a thing. So.
Well, and sometimes these fan theories also influence the writing. Sometimes they actually turn out to be true later. Like one of the early ones is that all the Pixar films are connected, which they later on started actually making a thing.
Or everyone on the airplane is dead.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, from Lost.
Yes. That's a polarizing one.
There's a couple variations of that kind of thing. Where everybody's either dead in purgatory. It's all in somebody's head. Another one I've heard along those lines is that the entire events of Friends is actually taking place in Phoebe's mind. So
interesting.
So, the homeless artist outside of a cafe there, making up backstories for people that she sees, and then telling the audience that.
I feel like that's St. Elsewhere's fault, though. Is it? Because maybe they were the first one that did the whole, like, it was all a dream. You're just looking at a snow globe. That hospital's not real. Yeah, I think things like that open the doorway to that type of fan theory.
Well, because they did that on Dallas. Remember, like everybody got super upset when JR died, right?
Yes, who shot JR? That's a big deal.
And then people were so upset. Brought him back. No, it was Duffy. Was Duffy the one that died? This is before my time.
No, it's JR.
Okay. Like they brought him back
brother.
because the fans were so upset.
Yeah, they killed Optimus Prime in Transformers movie. See, I am an Optimus Transformer fan. And the fan outcry from parents and children was such that they resurrected him in the comics and the cartoon, and then immediately killed him off again.
That's just cruel.
Yeah. But interesting point you made about creators. I definitely think that for some properties, and maybe Lost fits in there, where the creators are really kind of counting on the fan level of engagement and, you know, putting forth the theories and getting invested in that way in it. I see that more so than maybe I used to see in program television. So
I think some of that plays into just how quickly stuff is released now. Because you brought up how back several decades ago, you wait years before you saw another entry into the property, which gave time for some of this to build. Whereas now you're having a much tighter release window, and so you're seeing a lot more quick reaction to what's happening in the audience.
And we live in much more of an interactive kind of environment now too, where, you know, it's not just a push media, but the audience's level of involvement is increased and is encouraged.
Things like, you know, American Idol and TV shows like that where people do actually vote, and like the Masked Singer, they have stuff with that where like the audience has to do some sort of voting with that. And like they didn't really have anything like that when we were kids.
Yeah, I mean, and that kind of goes hand in hand with some of the reality TV show stuff, like, you know, your American Idol or, you know, Britain's Got Talent. I remember a television program in the 90s called A Murder in Small Town X, which was ostensibly a game show, but it was like a live action, immersive story where all of the players were being filmed for our entertainment, but they themselves were playing in a game with actors who were playing a role with them. And then every episode you would vote one of them to die.
Got done kind of quickly.
Weirdly enough, it's not a show you can get in syndication or on DVD. Might be a reason for that.
That's fair.
And there are a lot of fan theories around Star Wars.
Absolutely.
I know before the last one came out, I was very much hoping that with Rey, the idea that true balance in the Force means that you have both light and dark in you, because humans have light and dark. And that's kind of where I was hoping it would go, and I don't feel like it quite got there.
I feel like it was a half-hearted attempt to try to do Grey Jedi type stuff, and without actually committing to the idea of bringing that in.
You guys are so much nicer than
Yeah, and that's actually, yeah, that is probably a very flattering way to put it.
Didn't people think that Rey was a Skywalker after the first movie?
I think there was a lot of speculation. Well, I think that was intentional. I think that they had designed it in such a way that there would be a lot of speculation as to her background. I think those kinds of stories suffer from having a different creative vision helming each one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, changing directors in the middle of that was not a great move.
Yeah.
And I think that contributed to some of that. I think also Star Wars fans in general have a problem with expectations.
Expectation management.
Expectation management. Maybe again a fairly polite way to put that. And that played a role in some of the various reactions when the theories didn't necessarily pan out the way that was expected.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I feel like the current crop of like Marvel, Disney Plus titles are kind of that in miniature. You know, where you had WandaVision, you know, the first new property that come out, you hadn't even had Black Widow, And I think that first one, people really hit the fan theory drum hard. Kind of wanting all of Phase 4 to come out right at the beginning. And as time goes by, I see with these other series that they're dropping that expectation management has been pulled back a little bit, I think, for some of the fans.
Okay, I've got one. Since they're making another season of Good Omens, huge fan theory is that, I cannot remember his name, but Crowley and the Angel are essentially going to, like, that's like a ship that people have, and like, I super ship the two of them, but what is it?
I said that's interesting.
Yes, I like that. And so I think that's a really interesting one. And I'm excited and both terrified of a season 2 because there's no book to base it on. But I do like how somebody says something from Neil Gaiman about, well, how are you going to come up with this? What are you going to do? Just make it up? And he's like, that's how we got the first one.
That's true. That's also how we got the Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I was going to say that you see that picture of the horse online where the back end's really well sketched out there, slowly gets more and more and that's a perfect analogy for how Game of Thrones.
You bring up an interesting sub category of fan fiction, and that's the romance shipping.
Yes.
And I know that's a big part in most of them I've seen. So.
Oh yeah, like every character in Harry Potter I have heard, like, just literally every character.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what, like, back to remember like the Simon Snow series about is like, what if the chosen one ended up falling in love with like the Malfoy type character? And they're fantastic. Please read them, check them out from your local Aurora library. They're fantastic.
And I think it's later this year that Marvel is doing the What If show, which is effectively like a TV show predicated on different fan theories, you know, greater fan theories. So.
Yeah, that's later this year. And that's in a cartoon format too, so you can go quite a few different directions with that, exploring multiverse stories in the comics and those different fan type originations.
Okay, who is worthy of Thor's hammer?
Thor?
Well, besides Thor.
Captain America.
And Captain America.
In the current MCU or just in general?
In general, who do you think should be or could be worthy?
I'm just going to throw out a name, Beta Ray Bill. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like he's pretty worthy. Corbinite. Odin, since he put the enchantment on it, I'm going to say
Probably,
Odin.
yeah.
Who blew it up in Ragnarok?
Oh, Hela.
There we go. Because it was hers in the MCU before.
Yeah.
Of course.
And not Donald Blake, obviously. We also at the beginning of Thor, right?
Can the Hulk? Do we know?
No, because the Hulk tries to pick it up on the
That's
helicarrier
right.
in the Avengers
That's
and
right.
isn't able to do it.
Yeah, there's no iteration of Hulk I know if that can do that.
They can
Yeah.
lift that.
But could Hulk pick up Thor if he's holding the hammer?
I believe so.
Yeah.
My fan theory is yes.
What is
Because
your reasoning for that?
Because when you see Captain Rogers take control of Mjolnir in Endgame, and he's fighting Thanos, when Thanos gets the upper hand over him, he doesn't grab the hammer, he grabs Steve Rogers' arm. So he can affect the hammer if it's being wielded by another person, but he just can't pick it up since he's not worthy to wield it directly.
I'm gonna throw out the name Spider-Man.
Spider-Man?
Early Spider-Man, not later jaded Spider-Man. Like
Before or after the clones?
the pure version of like when Peter Parker is still just trying to like defend his little neighborhood. Like high school Spider-Man.
That's a theory.
Not Tony Stark, not ever, not in any universe. No.
That's an iteration of Tony Stark, I suppose.
Well, not Robert Downey Jr.
Possibly not Robert Downey Jr.
Who may actually be Iron Man.
He might be.
Do we need them anymore, really? Because I'm pretty sure we just shot a billionaire into orbit.
Yeah, that was the thing that happened.
Yeah, we're living in the future. It's
I
awesome.
believe there was a petition to not have the ship return as well.
And it has
But we'll have more opportunities to launch more billionaires into space.
Bezos is going up. And
Yeah, there's like a change.org thing on that where it's don't let the ship come back. It's got a bunch of
Interesting.
signatures on it.
We drifted into a different realm.
Yeah. Well, and it actually, there's quite a few realms of this kind of thing. Like, there's fan theories related to sports ownership. There's fan theories related to current events. You know, what's actually going on, what's not, etc. So,
Where are the missing ruby slippers?
Sure.
Because there were a pair of ruby slippers in the museum in Kansas, and they were stolen like a couple decades ago. No one can find them. Never come up for auction. Where are these slippers? I vote Oz personally.
Yeah.
It's just me.
probably back in Kansas.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, Wizard of Oz is definitely an intellectual property. I feel it's got a lot of fan theory
Oh, yeah.
built into it over the years.
Well, and it's morphed and changed because like the Judy Garland version is like so different from the
Yeah.
original Baum work, and
Yeah.
then
Or any of his follow-up.
yeah, and like Wicked is so different, and then there's the Return to Oz, which is incredibly fantastic.
Awesome.
Lunchbox trees.
Awesome movie.
Yeah, that's all I have to say. Lunchbox trees, you guys. I love lunchbox trees.
Yeah, super dark.
Oh, so good with the wheelers. There's like tons of fan theories around that, like Ozma and whether, and that's kind of the whole thing with the Wizard of Oz too. It's like, is it really a dream or is it a real place? So,
Sure. And then you got things like Ridley Scott's possible shared universe, because you've got visual elements that appear in both the film release of Alien, that pop up again in Blade Runner, or vice versa. And I've read, I can't tell you how many fan theories on like Blade Runner stuff specifically, that kind of take that step to explain why it couldn't be, to explain away why it can't be in the same universe. So.
who's going to be the new Doctor?
Yeah, that's a big one. Not as big a deal here, but historically, that's a huge fan theory event in Great Britain. So it's always interesting. There's always, I think, I want to say Gambling Houses actually do odds on the front runners for
awesome.
who may or may not become the next Doctor. So.
I've heard, and I don't have the actor's name, the guy that played Maz in the IT Crowd, his name has been batted around. And I was like, yes, that would be fantastic.
Benedict
Mystery.
Cumberbatch is pretty big.
Yeah,
He
I think
is.
he's
I've heard that
almost
mentioned
too
about
big.
Yeah.
You might be right about that.
Yeah.
I almost feel, because Stephen Moffat also was the creator, showrunner for Sherlock, that I think an argument can be made that Benedict Cumberbatch basically is the Doctor in Sherlock Holmes.
I've seen that. Like, I've seen like crossovers between the two, which have been kind of cool. I think that would be very interesting to see, like the Doctor and Sherlock in a room, because I think everyone else would just be like, I have no idea what was just said.
this is where I'd be curious to see the line odds you mentioned on those two names.
Yeah, and again, it's really fascinating because there's always a pretty big crop of them. And I want to say that one of the previous front runners is the gentleman who played Jackson Lake in the next Doctor during David Tennant's run.
Yeah.
Who was also the governor on The Walking Dead.
The balloon episode.
Yes, yeah, with the balloon cards,
Yeah.
So that actor had been kind of kicked around a little bit as a possible, actual next Doctor. So him being cast as a possible next Doctor was kind of a joke.
Seeing the guy who plays Colin in Love Actually, because then the Doctor would finally be Ginger.
It's a small thing.
I'm my Ginger. All right, Star Trek.
Star Trek fan theories. There are a few.
1,000 million.
Yeah, again, I feel like Star Trek's one of those franchises where they frequently kind of go down the what if route or what have you, and I think have a pretty robust dialogue, I guess, with their fan base. It's one of the few that I know that, going back to our earlier panel, does the time travel thing, but tries to have it both ways. So you're preserving the franchise that people enjoyed if they grew up, in the 70s and the 80s and 60s and things like that, and then something for a new audience that doesn't invalidate the previous one, which is one of the fun things about doing fan theories. So.
What do you think actually happened to Wesley Crusher?
Versus,
Like, because he goes off with.
I believe he became a
Traveler.
Maquis terrorist. I mean, right? Yeah, out there taking out Cardassians and fighting the Federation. Yeah, that's.
You don't think he became like a traveler?
No,
No.
no, no, not no.
Still very much just like to think that he like went back to Starfleet. I just really want to think that in my soul.
Fair enough. You know what you could do? Write some fan fiction.
Yes, that's a very good point.
That is a good point, actually, and I believe that that's something we've had as a part of these sort of cons, is fan fiction contests and submissions of that type. We are starting to get close to the end of our time, so I'd like to kind of go down and maybe hear what's the kind of strangest, those off-the-wall fan theory that you've heard or thought about.
Well, so Pokemon is my favorite fandom, and the fan theory that's been going around for years is, so obviously we're celebrating the 25th anniversary of the series, and Ash, the main protagonist, is still 10 years old. How is he still 10, 25 years later? It's because he's in a coma, and he's imagining all this. That is what people believe.
I've heard a variation of that where it's actually because he saw Hello in the first episode and the bird grants him eternal life.
That is, I like that theory so much better than the coma theory.
There is a variation of that.
Oh, okay, interesting. I'm going to go off of her.
Fair.
The fan theory I find, one of the fan theories I find most intriguing is the aging in comic books. So, in like Marvel Comics, Peter Parker has aged a little bit, but he's basically been a college student, for far longer than a normal person would be. Kitty Pryde has been a teenager for far longer than anyone should be. There is a theory in the community that Reed Richards and Sue Storm's son, Franklin Richards, who will be one of the most powerful mutants in the Marvel universe, doesn't like things to change. So he prevents things from changing. And all of the repetitiveness in Marvel Comics, none of the aging, nothing ever really changes, is because Franklin is a child and doesn't have control of his powers.
Okay.
I wonder how many more maybe fan theories we could get at.
Hard saying. Mine's more of just a kind of personal favorite because I find it amusing. And that one is that Stacy's mom is also Jesse's girl, and her name is Jenny.
Ah!
And her phone number.
Oh, 8675309.
I don't think I can top that.
I would really love for that.
I can't top that.
Okay, well, thank you all so much for joining us for a quick discussion of fan theories and various rabbit holes. We hope you all enjoyed the panels. Take care.